killed a hell of a lot of people to get to this point. And when I arrive at my destination, I am gonna kill Bill.
Welcome back, everybody, to Cinema Daily US. I am Matthew Schuchman, and today we are talking about Kill Bill, the whole bloody affair. And as you, I don't know why I decided to say it like that, but as you may or may not know, which I'm sure if you're watching this, you probably do know, Kill Bill was recently released as instead of Kill Bill Chapter 1, or Volume 1, Kill Bill Volume 2, it was released as one full movie. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about how this experience goes. I'm not going to necessarily go through a rundown of the story of Kill Bill because by now I'm sure you know what it is. So I want to dive right back into talking about the film and the negatives and the positives. I say the negatives first because I think we're going to dive into, because that's what you mostly have to talk about, is the negatives. Whether or not you like Kill Bill or not is not going to weigh on how I'm going to talk about it as a negative. Because what I want to talk about is the experience, again, as seeing Kill Bill Volume 1, Volume 2 as one movie, technically. The Kill Bill, the whole bloody affair. And first off, and I get it. I know there's a lot of people that have a hard time sitting down, especially in a theater. They have to go to the movie. They want to sit down straight for 4 hours. But I feel like having an intermission defeats the purpose of displaying this as one whole film. If you had the intermission in part of Kill Bill 1 or part of Kill Bill Volume 2, where it wasn't originally part of splitting those two movies, maybe you'll feel a little different. I don't know how you would do that, but I think having the intermission just defeats the purpose in a lot of ways. Because it feels like, yeah, well, movie one's done. Let me come back for movie two. And I get it. I don't want to say that, like people shouldn't have breaks and stuff like that. I just don't. To me, it defeats the purpose though, and that does take away from the experience a little bit. And again, now I'm going to say little things that maybe sound spoilerific in the most part for people, but again, if you've seen the films, you know. And but fair warning right now, there what because I'm going to get into some of the changes, and I'm not talking negative and or positive about them. But the one weird one, which I don't think I see a lot of people talking about, and maybe they have, maybe I've missed it, is that originally when Kill Bill Volume 1 came out, at the end of the film, Bill's talking to Sophie after her run in with the bride, and you still don't see him. People, don't realize it's Keith Carradine kind of thing at the time. And Volume 1, the original film, ends with him saying, "Does he know the child is still alive?" So if you didn't know at this point, the baby that she had when she was attacked was birthed and is alive. And that's like the cliffhanger ending of Volume 1. They remove that line. So you get the whole movie as is, with a few things we'll talk about in a second, and then you cut that line out and you go straight into the second movie. Again, most of us going to see this kind of know, and even if you didn't know, why is that stinger now not relevant to people who have not seen the film, watching it all as one solid block? Again, because intermission, solid block. Why is that no longer a stinger for them? Why is that idea taken out? I find that, again, it's a little awkward and confusing. Again, not catching it maybe for a lot of people wouldn't make a difference. Does it make it as a bigger shock? Did he want to do that originally? And the studio said, well, if we're going to split into two films, Harvey Weinstein's there going like, well, if you're going to make it two films, you got to have a surprise ending. And so he's like, oh, I didn't want to do that, cut it out. If that's the case, great. But not knowing makes it feel awkward. They added on an extra little scene inside lucyliu's animated section to show you what happened to one of the henchmen that you didn't see in the original film. I don't know. I don't know if it's being sold as that was originally supposed to be there and they cut it out, but it feels like it was a new animation. It feels like the animation was a little different, and it was maybe a written story that they never animated. But it's unnecessary. And it doesn't really change anything except just give you more. When you get to that big fight with the crazy 88s, it no longer goes black and white, which I know was done at the time because of the ratings board, but it no longer goes black and white, so it's all in color. And there are some added effects in there, including guys running around with heads chopped off and limbs chopped off. And whether it's because those were cut out because they look silly in the first place, or they look different when they're in black and white, those things now look silly and kind of detached from the rest of that scene a little bit. Even though there are some silly things that happen in that scene generally, they do feel they feel weirdly out of place. In the sense that from one shot to the other, you go from kooky action to ridiculously stupid action, if I can put it that way. I don't know if that makes sense to people without me kind of delving more into it. It just felt a little awkward. Um, so, that definitely does affect not the whole movie. It's like a total of 30 seconds overall, but it just didn't sit right because when you see it, that sticks in your head. And that's all you can think about. And then of course there is which I'm sure people may have seen by now, the Fortnite trailer, the Lost Chapter, which was something he written, they didn't film, and they decided to make it as to a Fortnite trailer, which is one of the most painfully irritating things I've ever seen in my entire life. I know there are people who love Fortnite out there, and it'll excite them, but it was like it shouldn't exist. I don't. I just you could have went out and done thousands of different things to refilm that chapter and animation in any number of ways. To do it with Fortnite and try to placate the Fortnite characters and stuff. It's just onto the positives. Look, for positives, like, hey, if you ever got to see the movie in the theater, or you want to see the movie as one solid block again with an intermission, so it kind of feels weird that you call it one solid block, it's there for you. And that's, like, I'm not talking about negative positives as the film goes. Whether you like the film, then it's a positive in general. You didn't like the film, it's a positive. You don't have to go see it again if you don't want to. Like that's all there is. So like this, even when I talk about the negatives, I'm just kind of talking about the differences that were different, but they didn't feel right technically. And I get it, because we're so used to seeing the film in one sense. So like that's the film. You've been used to that for so long. Why complain about it, I guess. But positives, like the film is still the film. Again, if you liked it, the film is still the film. It's going to be there for you. But as an experience, I think the grade level that I'm about to give goes toward the experience. And so for the final grade of Kill Bill: The Whole Bloody Affair is C plus, because to me, okay, thanks. That's all I needed. Bye. Till next time, have a great one.